two alternative ways that we think of the brain's content. Structure, and the other way that is more and more popular and more interesting to a lot of people studying the brain, process. Process, the idea here is that there's constant rhythms in the electrical activity of the brain going on all the time. And it's the speed and the nature of those rhythms that really determines what's going on, more than the content of any cells. Let's say, more than any particular architecture, it's the rhythm that's creating the content. So we know, for example, when we do neuroimaging, we have a pretty good idea which parts of the brain are impacting, the scene that we have as a conscious person, because all those parts are oscillating at 40 hertz. And the interesting thing is this allows, there's a big problem in neuroscience called the binding problem. Right? I have things coming in through my ears and through my eyes and through my muscles and my memories. How does that all cohere into one scene? Right? One coherent idea. And that's called the binding problem. And in the rhythmic model of the binding problem, everything doesn't have to be connected to each other all the time. These two parts know they're in sync, even if they're not directly communicating. A theory in which rhythm in process is more important to the content of what's going on in your head than the actual structure, the chemicals and, and the molecules and so forth. For Gibson, the central thing that we're doing all the time is perceiving movement over our visual sense and detecting patterns in that movement. It's a very rhythmic activity. Mary Jones. She says, when people hear friends engage in a conversation or listen to a familiar tune, when they watch a basketball game or when they observe a mother-infant exchange, they are engaged by temporally patterned changes. Such events comprise actions and movements that display distinct beginnings, recognizable rhythms, characteristic tempos, and lawful endings. An attentional theory that captures how we truly attend must consider how people respond when the object of attention changes in time. Madeline Haynes and James G. Martin, when we have computers spit out words without any kind of rhythm or intonation, our comprehension drops by 70%. So when people talk, they generate a framework. They're projecting a framework that this sentence is going to follow. And when they do that, you can hang expectations on that. And that allows you to navigate the sentences that most people are saying to you. And if they didn't have that prosodic contour, you wouldn't be able to follow them at all. So really, without music, this communication through standard English sentences is basically not possible. It may be that these theorists, who are not necessarily at the center of their field, are right in line with what's coming. Normally, the phases of light are diffuse. They spread out all over the place. They're all on their own. Given certain conditions, all these waves spontaneously form into one beam of light, a wavelength, a wave of practically infinite length. And that's what a laser is. That's why a laser is so powerful. And he formulated this general idea that large vibrations can take over small ones and unite them together, so that a large picture can dominate the small picture. Georgi Bushaki, who's a neuroscientist at Rutgers, also believes that this happens in the brain. He says that he studies a lot of rhythmic oscillators, and the larger oscillators, the broader patterns, typically order together and orient the smaller patterns. They are the bigger orderers in the brain, and they wrap the picture together. Okay? So my belief is music can have this function for us, and through movement it can penetrate into these processes and give them order where there was none, and help people with special difficulties overcome them.
Regarding what you said about the 40 hertz hypothesis, how was it arrived at 40 hertz? I mean, what was the process for determining that frequency? Because that's basically an E flat if you multiply it up, right?
Yeah. I think I worked that out one time. Yeah, it was something like that. Very low.
So how was it determined?
And so then I thought I'd make a CD that was all E flat. Sell it. It's a brain.
The universe is supposed to have a B flat, and so I'm thinking, maybe we're a perfect fourth of the universe.
Yeah.
We're all E flats inside. So so I was curious, what was the process?
Well, they measure all these different oscillations using neuroimaging and related techniques.
Would this mean that people might have more of an affinity to E flat major, for instance, than other keys? Because you think about like Mozart writing a lot of things, and
these are the things
I
just have a question regarding Eurythmics, which is, do you find that it is increasingly helpful as a collaborative effort? I mean, I'm just wondering, there's a lot of egos that will all gather in one room to perform Eurythmics, and if you sort of see those egos bumping into one another, or if often they sort of combine to create one rhythm?
Well, first of all, I want to make the always confusing distinction between Eurythmy and Eurythmics. Eurythmy is something created by Rudolf Steiner for the Waldorf school system. In terms of the egos in the room, Dalcroze believed that his method could be a unifier of peoples, and he put on mass spectacles where many, many people would move in coordination. And he believed this could create harmoniousness among the people. There's more volume in the auditorium with less effort when people go into that synchronized clapping. And it's just like a laser beam. It's an example of spontaneous order, emergent properties, and chaos.